Hello, everyone, and welcome to a different type of PD today. We're so excited to have you try this out. This is an amazing tool you can use in your classroom from TED Ed, where you're going to be self-progressing through our lessons today and getting the information you need from our PD session. So starting out this afternoon, we're going to first talk about some very important research that's done on these type of crisis situations where students have missed school and what we need to do to get them up. The great news for us is it aligns exactly with what we've been talking about in our rigor tree, which you'll see in our resources in just a second, as well as what we've been talking about when it comes to our accelerated learning model. So looking at meeting kids where they are. So with that being said, we're going to direct you to the next resource in this video, which is going to be an article called Learning from Crisis. Enjoy this, and then there'll be some follow-up questions afterwards. See you soon.
Hi everyone, Amanda Garcia here, your school social worker. I just wanted to take a couple minutes to share how I can be of a support to you and our students. I'm here to bridge any gaps between social and emotional learning in order to help students achieve success in the classroom and out of the classroom. Some of the topics that I will cover include skills for learning, managing emotions, values and friendships, and handling conflicts. If you would like me to provide a whole group lesson, please fill out the Excel calendar that was sent out and include your Zoom link. If you would like to refer students for a small group, which would reinforce the whole group lessons, please fill out the social worker referral form. You can also use that form if you need Tier 1 support. Other things you may find me doing include providing community resources and referrals to those in need. To learn more about my role and how I can be of a support, please check out the PowerPoint that I attached and also check out my school website. On Schoology, we will have a SEL folder and it will hold prompts and worksheets for additional at-home learning. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or concerns, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Another great way to help support our students' social emotional development needs is if you taught here last year to ask the grade above you if you can stop into a Zoom session just to say hi to kids. In previous years, kids would always stop by their former teachers' classrooms just to say hi. And I know not everyone got the closure they wanted with their students last year. This might be a great way to just show that you still care and you're still here for them.
We know that one of the keys to student learning is in the type of instruction engagement that they have during a lesson. Effective engagement is more than just a task or a tool. Instead, it looks at how we're asking students to cognitively process and apply the things that they're learning. So as we dig in, let's start with some non-examples of effective engagement. Our first non-example is questioning and asking for volunteers one at a time without any prior processing. Students aren't held accountable for having to think or be able to come up with an answer on their own, nor do they get the opportunity to interact with their peers to see what other people's answers are. And if a teacher asks every single student a question, it takes quite a bit of time and detracts from what the core piece of learning is that you're trying to meet with your learning intentions. The second non-example is extended lecture that's not developmentally appropriate without any processing time. Here's what we know about brain research. Depending on the age of a student, there's a certain number of chunks and a certain time limit that kids can grapple with knowledge and information before it drops out of their working memory. As you lecture, all of that information that they are taking into their heads is being stored in working memory. But since most of our students are between the ages of 5 and 14, what we know is that after 5 to 10 minutes, that information drops out of working memory and it will never be transferred into long-term memory, which is the goal of what our learning is. So making sure that those pieces of lecture are appropriate and chunked. The third non-example is planning with only one resource without any differentiation in mind. If there was a single curriculum that we knew worked and was a magic bullet, we definitely would purchase it. But what we know is that depending on your class and depending on your students, you have to supplement with different pieces at different times and create differentiated groups, whether that's by choice or interest or ability or all of the above, in order to meet the needs of all of your learners. So now that we've talked about some non-examples, let's look at what good engagement does look like. So the first piece is being able to move students along the continuum of engagement. Like we said, engagement is more than just students taking notes or listening actively during a lecture. Depending on how you're asking students to interact and process that information will determine where they fall on this continuum. And this is a twofold continuum. The first acts as a self-assessment piece for the teacher to determine where they would fall on this continuum based on the tasks and activities that they have planned for their instruction. And the second piece is for students to see where they fall on how they're choosing to be engaged based on what you choose in your lesson. The goal is not always to be at driving. That is our vision. That's where we're continuing to want to go. But what we want to have happen is that our teachers and our students are continually moving forward, making growth and gains in that intrinsic motivation of being engaged. The second piece we just referred to in our non-examples, but it's brain research timeframes for direct instruction. Like we said, everything is chunked. I want you to think about how the numbers on your credit card are arranged. How many numbers are there at any given point, and how do you choose to give it to someone? Well, if you're like me, then you give it to them 4 numbers at a time. And that's because our brain chunks information in groups of 3 to 5 from ages 5 up. That's what we can grapple with in our working memory. And after 5 to 10 minutes of that, our kids stop engaging. It can be super interesting and you put a lot of work into it. But like we said before, if that direct instruction, that lecture goes beyond that time without processing or some sort of interaction where they're able to apply the information, then they're going to disengage, and that information goes from the working memory to the short-term memory, which means that it will leave very, very quickly. So as you're planning your instruction, you can have multiple sets of direct instruction that are 5 to 10 minutes, but you just have to make sure that there's processing and application embedded within. The third piece that will lead you to really effective engagement is using our rigor planning tree. This was something that was developed by us last year when we were looking at our model of acceleration and rigor within the school. Following this tree down, you look at your why. What is the relevance in the students learning it, and what is the purpose and the goals that you're wanting to set? You're looking at data, either previously taken or data that you get at the beginning of a unit or the beginning of a day. And from there, essentially, you are filtering your students into one of 3 groups. Either students need scaffolded learning, meaning they haven't met the mastery of the standards and the goals and learning intentions that you have set for the day, or they've met them but at a very surface level, which means they need to go deeper, or you see that they have a deep understanding of your learning intentions and of the standard, and they're ready to be accelerated and move beyond. If this tree is followed, your students will always be differentiated based on their need. So now let's talk about non-negotiables. Non-negotiables for this time is that you must use Schoology for some assignment submissions. If you're syncing your gradebook, again, you will want all of your assignments to be put into Schoology at some point, but some of them at least have to be used in Schoology. You must use your Florida Virtual for pacing and alignment of standards and rigor, meaning that the order that Florida Virtual presents material in is the same order you'll need to present it in. You'll also need to stay on pace with your team. Like we've talked about before, this is really to have some continuity between remote and in-person learning if we bounce back and forth, or if substitutes come in, or if classes are having to be split for the day, that there's still continuity in what they're learning and where they are within their progression. There does need to be 2 grades per week for all assignments, and that needs to align with the team. In the Zoom, which is our video chat platform, the waiting room has to be enabled. The end of module assessment also needs to be given within the Florida Virtual. The reason for that is because it already aligns with the pacing and with the level of rigor that our standards ask for. So we know that if the students are performing well on it, that they do have the level of rigor needed. And if they're not, then we can determine where we need to place in some of those scaffolds. The last non-negotiable is our school schedule. that we do begin at 8:15 and we do need to end at 3 o'clock. Our negotiables are the type of formative assessment that we have. There are some formative assessments already loaded into Florida Virtual. Some are PDFs, some are quizzes, some require a discussion board or a Google Doc. You can take that information and turn it into any type of formative assessment you like. If you'd like to make it more engaging or you'd like to do an automatic submission using your Google Drive, you definitely can. We do not want to push a worksheet-based learning platform for this. The second negotiable you have the freedom to do is how you deliver instruction. While the information from Florida Virtual is there, how you extract it and how it's presented to students and how you choose to have students work with it all lies within your teacher power. We trust your instincts and we want to see you use that creativity for what you know is going to be best for kids. You have control over the tasks, activities, and tools that you use. If you want to use a Padlet or a Kahoot or Flipgrid, if you want students to be working collaboratively in groups or have independent time, activities that are whole group, exploration activities, choice board menus, all of those are at your disposal to use as you see fit based on the needs of your kids. You get to decide how you structure the module assessments. How might you chunk the assessment? How might you grade it? How many questions? Are there questions that do not align to our standards? If you are using the assessments as is in Florida Virtual, are there extra question choices that you want to take out so that it's not randomized, especially for our younger kids? While the level of rigor and the alignment to the standards has to stay within the assessments, how you structure it is up to you. And finally is your structures of time. While we do have to operate between the 8:15 and 3 o'clock schedule, how you structure your time outside of lunch and special areas is up to you. How would you like to do brain breaks? How often are kids going off to work on independent practice? Are you pulling small groups? Is there exploration? When are you using breakout rooms? Those are all things that you have the power to control throughout your day. So now that we've had a chance to talk about this a little bit, take a minute to explore the resources that I showed here, linked on the side, and answer the questions we have provided.